Are you ready for next level growth in your business? Welcome to the Lindsey Anderson Show, where we pull back the curtain on the exact strategies, tools, and mindsets that build million-dollar empires. If you're hungry for more time, more freedom, and a whole lot more impact, you've come to the right place. Buckle up, because we're about to ignite your business journey. Now, here's Lindsey.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of The Lindsey Anderson Show. I am so excited for today's guest. Today I'll be speaking to Miss Tamara Thompson, the host of Broadcast Your Authority TV, who has invested in over 25 companies. As the CEO of Broadcast Your Authority, she helps brands establish industry authority through strategic micro-content from podcasts. Her video marketing career began in 2013 with Serious Take Productions, achieving viral success and festival acclaim. Tamara now shares her expertise on stages and platforms, focusing on content strategies and AI-driven growth. I'm so excited to welcome her to the show today. Tamara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lindsey, for having me. It's great to be here.
So before we really dive into this interview, what are you known for?
There's a couple of different things that I've known for. The way that it started, obviously now it's more on the lines of podcasting, content marketing, things in that realm. But before it really started and evolved into that, I was an award-winning film director in Seattle, Washington, and I had multiple films sell out in film festivals. And then also I had films acquired by indie flicks. And so I was very known in the filmmaking space in Seattle before I moved to I now reside in Arizona, but that's really what I was known for first before evolving and starting a production company. And then also shifting and going into the content marketing space later on, which is now what
You caught my attention online and we connected around. I love these podcast tours that you go on. You get people set up with these visual podcasts. You bring a lot of people in. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our agency focuses on different aspects of the podcasting realm. The podcast tour opportunities are really for those that we cater to on those side of it. One is for founders, leaders, thought leaders, even authors, speakers that are looking to get booked on other podcast shows. We started this virtual podcasting tour experience where you were able to build relationships with multiple podcast hosts in different categories for the specific niches that our clients are looking for to get them booked on shows virtually. And through the experience of that, we provide a bonus opportunity for our clientele to come in and be featured on our show as well for Broadcast Your Authority. So it's a cool experience because that experience, we actually bring people into our partnership that we have with SiriusXM in Las Vegas, and they get to be featured in that. It's a beautiful studio space. Our show gets over 50,000 unique viewers just to our YouTube channel each month. We get tens of thousands of downloads to the audio podcast as well. So it's a great positioning tool, a great feature to be able to get booked on other people's shows and those on the virtual tour. We make sure that we book our clients on podcasts that make sense for their brand, but also are ranking in the top 1 to 10% in the categories that they choose to go towards. So it's very important because we've built this big network of people to say, hey, this would be a great guest for your show. And
I love that. And so basically, you're really utilizing these relationships, and relationships is a big part of your strategy. Can you speak more about that?
so this is just came naturally to me over the years, just as a person to connect the dots. And then all of a sudden people started calling me the connector as my nickname behind the scenes. And then one of my buddies, Vince Reed, he was like, you should just create a course called Connect Like a Baller. And I'm not quite sure that fits on brand for me, but I do like that. I don't really necessarily want to create courses and things like that, but I really should leverage how I approach people and build relationships and provide value first and open the doors for people so people understand memorable experiences or just remember people in general. And so we started building our network, and then we started hosting events back in 2014. And so people would come in, they just always remember the experiences that we put on. And so we still have people over the years that are like, oh my gosh, I remember this event that, Tamara's team had in 2019. And I met, so all these people are just connected over the years, and they're still colleagues, friends, business partners, things like that. And so just building relationships is extremely important to me. And you can tell when people are actually go-givers and they actually do what they preach. It's about finding those people that are really in your tribe in that sense. And we've really built that community out with people that actually have mission driven purpose, but also want to be profitable from their businesses. So there's different sides to that. So we love to build relationships and create JV partners and understand what people do. So it's like saying, hey, Lindsey, how can I help you? Who are the people that you would really like to connect with? Can I introduce more people to your show that could build relationships, and they might actually be prospects for you as well, or see how those relationships form. So that's really one of the things that's been really important, and that's how we build a very big network at this point in our podcasting community. So very grateful for that.
Yeah, it shows how much you care about these connections. It's one of the things that I like most about podcasting is it really opens the door to get to know and expand your sphere of influence because you get on calls like this and you actually have face-to-face time and get to know each other. So it's one thing that I love about the podcasting world in and of itself. But I want to ask you today, Tamara, you have a great listenership, great numbers. What are your top strategies for promoting your podcast and to grow its listener base?
That's a great question. The way that we really took off was something that actually came from my origin story. So when we were leveraging our production company years back, what happened was um, it all evolved, and I didn't even realize it till later on. But when YouTube came out, I was like, what is this YouTube beast? Like, I want to tackle this thing. And so we turned around and we actually directed quite a few documentary films for celebrities, influencers, entrepreneurs, business owners. And that was our focus with the production company that we had. And it was to tell that story that was inspiring, that was impactful, that was creative, that was comedic, whatever it was for that brand. We created these brand trailers that led into a full length story, which was a documentary. And so what happened was we literally had some clients, and this was back in like 2012, and the same format that we utilize on our podcast service side currently, same methods that we use for reach and things like that for our podcasting clients. Now we know them as YouTube Shorts, Reels, TikTok. Back then, of course, we're calling it teaser videos, trailer videos, things like that. And there was one client, we put up a video, and we weren't quite sure what we were doing at that point, but we were trying to test out YouTube and its algorithms and the suggestion to reach more people on YouTube specifically. And then one day we uploaded a video. We came back like 10 days later. We're like, oh my gosh, it has 888,000 views. We're like, what? So we're like, okay, let's evaluate this. What did we do to allow this to happen? So what happened from that video took off, and then we uploaded similar teaser videos. Those started to take off, and we led them back to the full length documentary. So people could either purchase, rent, or view, or buy the packages that were involved with the screenings and things like that. We started doing that for other clients, started figuring it out, started to see what people liked, started using their methods of tagging and SEO and things like that. And then they all started taking off. We're like, this is awesome. We got really YouTube geeky. And we do the same thing today because what happened from that experience is IndieFlix ended up finding us and acquiring multiple of our films from the production company side. And then I went into the speaker realm and started training, and our films won a bunch of awards. And then we decided that we wanted to actually focus on something different. We were like, how can we work with more people on a consistent factor, a subscription model that can be more consistent content? So light bulb went off. We're like, what about video podcasts? We can do a similar thing where it's your podcast teaser. And this was before podcasts were really starting to take off. And so one of the ways that we really share to actually reach people is one, to have a video podcast and place it on YouTube first, because when you optimize it correctly, you have the opportunity to pay attention to the data. So each of our clients that we work with, the team is in there every 30 days, checking the report, seeing what took off, which shorts took off, what titles did well, which guests did they have on the show that was willing to share out that maybe also had influence that took off. Could we recommend to them to have an encore with that guest? So when this goes live, of course, I'm going to promote your show. I'm going to share it on our channels, accept collaborations, do whatever I can do to help support you and your show, because I'm grateful enough for you to invite me on your show. And so that's one of the main methods, is just paying attention to the data, especially YouTube first, and then also the categories on the audio podcast side. Which category is this podcast in? Is it business category? Do you want to try to rank in this category? Another way to reach more people is to consistently ask for reviews each month. That's another way to get your audio podcast to get an expanded reach as well. So I would say those are probably my few top pieces on more of a data-driven way, but that's really how people can get their message out there with podcasting more consistently.
That's the way, right? You do what you can and put an iteration out there, then you review the data and see what works and do more of that and try to improve on that and just really take a data approach to the whole thing and just get incrementally better.
I think that people get into this flow, right? And sometimes even when people work with agencies, right, you're just like rinse and repeat. But are people
Yep.
actually paying attention to that data each month? If you're doing content and it's just stagnant, right? And you're like, okay, like I haven't necessarily gotten new leads from this strategy. Definitely look at alternate ways to actually create the content. Are there different keywords? Were there certain reels that took off, certain types of guests? Paying attention to that can also fun with YouTube because you can see that data. You're like, okay, so this topic took off, like how to scale your business with podcasting, or this is an
Right.
example. So we're like, okay, so the words that took off are business and scaling. Maybe you have other episodes like how to scale your business with email marketing, how to scale your business with XYZ, because you saw another piece of content on your channel take off. We did something very similar in the beginning because I had another show in the very beginning before we started Broadcast Your Authority, and it was called Video Marketing for Business. And the reason that I
Mhm.
selected it was because I knew video marketing for business was a long form keyword that was also searched on YouTube and Google over 1,000 times a month. So each time that we applied something, the show started to rank. The content started to rank on the playlist on the YouTube channel, not for just the purpose of the podcast name, but we created a separate playlist for the keywords, video marketing for business. Then we turned around and created different video segments, video marketing for business 101, video marketing for business for brick and mortar, things like that. So you create those topics that you know your channel is already resonating with on your show, and then just pay attention to that. And that's usually helped a lot of people.
Yeah, so you just want to make sure that those search engines and that people can find you when they're utilizing the places that they search. Can you expand just a little bit more on the social media strategy in terms of shorts and reels? So, like, give us some tips on. We have a full podcast episode. We've published that on streaming platforms as well as YouTube. What's my strategy for social media now?
That's a great question. So, like an example, let's say you have your video podcast, let's say it launches on Tuesdays, and you're like, you definitely want at least 5 reels or short to promote at least Monday through Friday for the show. So you're driving it back to specific links. The first 48 hours, let's say you post a reel on Instagram and you want to drive people back to watch the YouTube video first because it's important to get traction to YouTube channel within the first 48 hours of launching a video podcast. The cool thing though is when you have the aspect to be able to control how many pieces of micro content that you actually cut up and post, there's certain platforms that just are like, we like higher frequency. So let's say you do one reel on Instagram because Instagram also likes lifestyle and other things as well. So you might be like, one post a day is towards the podcast, right? So the first one's going to YouTube. The second day, you have another reel go out. Let's say you want to promote it to the Apple podcast link. So you want them to listen to the audio podcast. So you're getting audio downloads and traffic to your YouTube. We know currently right now that TikTok and YouTube shorts like favor doubling up on the posting content. So let's say you want to do at least 2 posts a day on YouTube shorts and TikTok to allow for subscribers to come in. Because currently, with the information that we've gathered right now, shorts actually are at about a 67% rate for new subscribers. So what I'm saying is the YouTube shorts that come in, the majority of new subscribers come in at the 67% people watching your content, which is great because they're like, oh, okay, I like it. It's short enough to consume. I think I like her. I'm gonna subscribe to her YouTube channel. But a good thing to look at though, too, is when you are doubling up on the frequency for certain channels like YouTube and TikTok, and maybe you're doing one post or reel a day, Monday through Friday for your show on the podcast, but doing lifestyle stuff throughout the rest of your Instagram or other tips and tricks. The cool thing about it though is we have on the side note of being able to higher the frequency on things like YouTube and TikTok. Another thing to watch is the watch time. So the watch time is a very important factor to get more people to come to your channel because all of a sudden you go into the back end of your YouTube channel and you'll see watch time and you'll see your average watch time based on shorts and long form content. So shorts, of course, under 60 seconds, long form content, anything over 60 seconds. If you have a short on there that's from your podcast and it's an average watch time of 27 seconds, YouTube has spoken. It says, "Hey, Lindsey, we want your next pieces of content to be 27 seconds or less," because YouTube will actually recommend and suggest your content at a higher percentage. You might be at like a 47% suggestive rate back there. And then you're like, oh, it's saying that my top performing are 27 seconds. So I'm going to start posting content that is 27 seconds. Do that. And then all of a sudden you're jumping up to 80% being suggested on YouTube. So that's one of the main things to pay attention to with that strategy, depending on the platform, basically. So
I
hopefully
love that. I love how data driven, as you said, YouTube has spoken. Go and read the data and then just do what it says.
I think it's funny too, because a lot of people, I had a conversation with somebody the other day and they have a show that they do only twice a month. But it's an hour-long show. And I was like, "Do you know what the back end data says? What's the average watch time of a video?" And they were like, "I think it's only like 15 minutes." I was like, "Are you open to having more consistent show and make them into part 1 and part 2 of those?" So, like, as long as you find a clear cut that we're obviously gonna tune in next week to the other half of this exciting episode, it's also the consistency and the frequency volume too. So people, when you have a show, like we suggest always have a weekly show, find a way that can fit in with your timeline and time frame. Batch record content, batch record your interviews if you can. So you can set them up back to back so it's less time on you to record your show. And they're like, "Oh, we didn't really think of that." They're like, "We don't want to put more shows on the host." I was like, "You don't have to. Just split it up. So it's part 1, part 2. So you have a weekly show going out or episode that's about 30 minutes. Because if your average watch time is 15 minutes, YouTube might not suggest your content. So our show's 30 minutes. It's a great consumable, unless you're like Joe Rogan or somebody out there that can do 2-3
Right.
hours. When you have that following, when you have that ability, go for it. But when you're first building out your channels, pay attention to the watch time too, because YouTube will reward over time based on the numbers and the data.
Can you speak to, so yes, 30 minutes I've also found is a really great episode time, but you have, in terms of business owners and using your podcast as a lead generation source, can you speak to those solo interviews versus guest appearances and how you like to split those up and your philosophies around that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually recommend it. Obviously, a lot of people like to do interviews, but I actually suggest splitting up your content because you want people to be attracted to you as a leader, thought leader, expert, and drive business back to your business, right? I think a lot of the times people end up coming in and they might have a guest and maybe they're not the best interviewer, right? They might let the guest run the show. They're just
Sure.
having a conversation. You're great because you've got strategy, you've got structure with certain types of topics that you're like, "Hey, we're going to talk about this and this." That's exciting to me because you've got structure. Like you were prepared, pre-interview prep stuff for the guest. That's awesome. But some people just wing it. And when you wing it like that and you're not stepping in as the authority, a lot of the time, you're not positioning yourself on your own show. So that's awesome. I think a lot of people miss out on that opportunity. But if they are doing the solo content piece, that's perfect because they can come back in and reposition themselves as the expert coming in. But when they're also doing the interviews as well, step back in. It's your
Yeah.
show. You built the audience. And we're grateful as guests to come in on the show. Just always step in with gratitude and just understand that come in to share the value. But I think structure is very important to have with shows.
Can you speak to guest quality on a show? Like all guests aren't created equal, I would say, but what would you say to that?
I always say there's like the podcast etiquette when stepping into a show.
Yeah.
I think it really depends like who you're bringing into the show. Is it a guest that you want to come in and build a relationship with that could potentially open up doors? Think strategically when you're inviting guests, right? Is it somebody that can come in and be a power partner? Is it a previous client that could vouch for you and provide an amazing story and case study? What type of guests do you really want to have on your show? Is it celebrities because you just want to be next to influence, or do you want to build a relationship to have with other influencers that also will open up business opportunities or affiliate opportunities or JV partnerships? I think it's very important to be selective of guests, but just know who you want to have as a guest. What is
Yeah.
the strategy?
What
What
is
is
the
strategy?
What is the whole intent behind this? And can you speak to what your experience has been having guests on your show and how that promotes the show growth.
We have a unique structure to our show. The show is something that's much bigger than me, and eventually it will not involve me. And that's because we're building a network to build, to scale, to sell. The whole method of the show is myself and three other co-hosts that we rotate throughout the season. Some of them coming in are power partner, JV partners, influencers, celebrities. Some of them are our clientele that come in as well that are featured on the show. We're very strategic with who's on the show, of course. The reasoning for that is because we're opening up our show in different hubs in different cities. We have a partnership directly with SiriusXM. So we record have a flight every quarter to go over to Vegas. I don't live in Vegas, but we have a partnership and the SiriusXM studios is there. We leverage that space and that partnership and audience. But the bigger idea is to, and we've already talked to who our power partners are in certain cities, they're going to start hosting seasons in other cities. So there'll be like 4 different co-hosts in different cities that will operate the show them as well. So the show will get up to, it's currently at 2 episodes a week. The show will then get up to 3, 4, 5 episodes a week. It's never really about my face ever, about the brand, about Broadcast Your Authority. So a lot of people step in thinking that they're growing something, of course, to leverage themselves. But we have a different kind of strategy to build an overall network in that regard. So this year we're opening up meetups in different cities, which I will not be at the majority of those, but we've got brand ambassadors that will come in to help cater to that. But it's just much bigger than myself. Being able to create a show that matters and makes sense, that has the right types of people that we want to appear on the show, founders that have scaled companies that can help provide strategic advice. Some people have built stories from scratch and sold their companies. Everybody's got really cool stories that come into the show. It's a unique experience for sure. But that's really just like the overall thing that we're focusing on. How can you make your show unique and different? And I was like, let's just not focus on me. Let's just focus on everybody else. So when we do that, we're collaborating with 3 other co-hosts, myself, and then our Broadcast Authority page. So it starts to go out to multiple audiences. We've got so many people doing really cool things, sharing out. People get excited to not just be featured, but being the co-host side of it too. Turn into cool conversation. And we always prepare everyone ahead of time. We provide topics and suggested questions, but of course, things turn into conversation. And so it opens up the doors. But it's awesome because at the end of the day, these people have gotten to know each other. They've gotten to know their backstory. They're talking backstage. They're talking in the green room. They're talking at lunch. They're talking at dinner. And a lot of relationships tend to build from there. And then we just start opening up the doors and making introductions at dinner to other people. So we're like literally sitting next to another co-host and, hey, I actually learned more about your story today, Lindsey. So I want to connect you with the whole side of actually just having a show is building a network versus like just the show. But it allows for people to come in and still share their offers, their lead magnets, their books, but it turns into so much more than that.
Yeah. And I think that really just winds up on what we were talking about at the top of the show, that podcasting is a really great way to build these connections and then strategically utilizing all those connections because you called yourself connector, and really how to use that as such a strength to reach so much more people, to build your business and to be able to sell this off. So I think I really appreciate you coming on the show today and expanding on that and how powerful podcasting can be and who you can meet through podcasting and all of the opportunities past that. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Before I let you go, Tamara, I'm going to turn the time over to you. Let us know how to find you and anything else you want the audience to know.
Thank you so much for having me today. I truly appreciate you. And I'm excited to even build this relationship even further after being on the show and you coming on our show soon, hopefully too. For myself, I love Instagram. I think Lindsey likes Instagram too. It's Tamara Thompson Official. Apparently Tamara Thompson was taken. So it's at Tamara Thompson Official. Also at Broadcast Your Authority. Anywhere you can basically follow our show at Broadcast Your Authority. On our YouTube channel is our biggest point. Please subscribe, check out some of our episodes. Let us know what you think. We always love feedback on that. Yeah, anywhere Broadcast Your Authority or Tamara Thompson Official.
Thank you so much for being on the show. There you have it, folks. Another really awesome episode of The Lindsey Anderson Show. Thank you again, Tamara, for joining us on this episode of The Lindsey Anderson Show. Thanks to everybody who is listening, and cheers to you and your success.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Lindsey Anderson Show. If you loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share how you're leveling up your business. Want more? Connect with Lindsey Anderson and get the tools you need to crush your goals at lindseya.com. Until next time, keep pushing, keep growing, and turn those business dreams into reality.